The African Hebrew Israelites journeyed from gritty American cities to the golden sands of the Promised Land.
We're direct descendants of the biblical Israelites.
Israel is our land. Why don't we go there?
We believed that we were going to be accepted.
Our plans are to establish the kingdom of God.
But the Israeli government saw things differently.
הכת מחנכת את חבריה להיות חוד החלוץ של 40 מיליון כושים מארצות הברית, שלדעתם הארץ שייכת להם.
בהתחלה שעלינו לארץ, הדלתות לא פתוחות עבורנו.
Everybody looking at us like we come off the moon.
They started deporting people.
We weren't able to get health insurance. We weren't able to get jobs.
Why would you bring your children over here to know that we would live a level under?
But they've held on through sheer grit, determination, and faith.
הכל החל להשתנות בשבילנו, כי אנחנו שמרנו בהתמדה עם העמים שלנו.
We knew that this was our calling, this was our land, and we had to fight to stay here. And so we just trust in the God of truth.
That's why I love this country. And I know some people are like, what? You love this country? But I really do. I really do.
Today, they're still fighting, not just for their rights, but to preserve their unique culture.
As all the youngsters, you want to explore.
I have a complicated relationship with my community.
If y'all don't stick with this culture will be extinct.
So who are the African Hebrew Israelites? And why has their place in Israel remained so controversial?
Me and my sister, we're planning to move here to Tel Aviv.
The center of my life is moving from the south to the center now. So I'm realizing it as I'm talking. I'm like, yeah, this is a huge move.
Huge may be an understatement. Because Chavivia and Yalital grew up in one of Israel's most controversial micro-communities, Keilat Ha'ivrim, the Hebrew Israelites. To understand why their move is such a big deal, let's take a trip down south.
Okay, welcome to my home. My mom has 8 kids. So my parents came here in the 90s. So I was born and raised in Israel. I grew up in the Village of Peace. I was homeschooled from the first grade up until I was about 13. And one of the reasons was because I did not have any citizenship here. So we were kind of illegal immigrants here. So we kind of were in limbo.
Did you ever think, like, why? Why is this happening? Why do I not have status while other people?
I for sure got angry. When I was like a teenager, I started to feel it because it's a big thing having status. It leaks into all different areas of your life.
You see yourself as an Israeli, but then you're not recognized as one fully. And so those things cause anger, they cause frustration, they cause contemplations like, is my place really here? Is it elsewhere? Do I remain here? Do I leave? Because what it boils down to is living a life of dignity with rights.
Yalital and Kavivia's story echoes the experience of the entire African Hebrew community. Homecoming, hardship, and a struggle for acceptance. It's a narrative I'd been aware of for years, but it wasn't personal until I met Ashriel Moore at university.
You were born and raised here. Right. So take me through what it was like growing up in this community.
I think one of the most beautiful things about the community itself is that you have a family of 2,000 people that you're born right into. There's the African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And that's really what we experience here.
Their home base is in the southern Israeli city of Dimona, in a neighborhood called the Village of Peace, an urban collective, or kibbutz, that they built from scratch. The story of how a group of Black Americans made the Israeli desert bloom began halfway across the world, with a metal worker in Chicago formerly known as Ben Carter, who later took the name Ben Ammi, Ben Israel. Ben Ammi came of age as the fight for racial equality in the US was reaching a fever pitch. He tried to make sense of the systemic inequality that beset his community. Hebrew Israelism seemed to have the answers. Hebrew Israelism is a theological movement that emerged in post-emancipation America, built on the conviction that enslaved Africans were at least in part descendants of the ancient Israelites, and that racism and discrimination were the consequences of spiritual disobedience. You might have seen Hebrew Israelites like these online or on a street corner shouting vile obscenities about Jewish people. But Hebrew Israelites are not a monolith. They span from radicals to rabbinic-style communities who view themselves as part of the wider Jewish world. Although Ben Ammi's parents were Baptists, they told him his ancestors were Israelites, and that one day, their people would return to Israel. Over time, This idea resonated with Ben-Ammi more and more, drawing him closer to the Hebrew Israelite belief system.
America is the land of the captivity, the land of horrors. It was never to be the land of blessings for our people. We were put there to be punished.
Ben-Ammi's star rose quickly among his fellow congregants, who came to see him as their anointed leader receiving revelations from God. In 1966, Ben-Ammi told his community that he had a vision from the angel Gabriel that changed everything.
Ben-Ammi is in Chicago. Chicago was like the heartland of what would you call progressive and dynamic black thinking. And so in 66, when he gets the vision, it's like right after the Watts and the Newark riots and right before a huge conflagration of social disorder in America.
ואני שמעתי דברי אל עליון, וגילה לי שעלינו להכיל את היציאה מארצות הברית וחזרה לארץ ישראל להקים את מלכות אל.
He said, are we Hebrews or not? He said, if we Hebrews, why don't we speak Hebrew? And if it's Israel is our land, why don't we go there? And so Ben-Ammi began studying Hebrew. We had a teacher by the name of Naphtali, and he taught us basic alphabet, so forth and so on.
The vision led to a split with the elders of his congregation, who wanted him to wait for a miraculous deliverance. But Ben-Ammi felt the time had come for action, for him and his people to retrace their steps back to the land of Israel. And this meant returning first to West Africa.
Our fathers, when they left out of ancient Egypt, did not enter straight into this land. They had to go via the wilderness to purify themselves and to cast off the ways of the decadent society from which they came. We had to do the same thing.
In West Africa, they would cleanse themselves of everything that plagued them in the spiritual wasteland of America.
We needed a wilderness, and so we knew we came from West Africa. We know that the slave trade brought us from that direction. And there was Liberia, whose constitution required that they open their doors to any of us that wanted to return. And indeed, by 1967, everybody was in Liberia.
From urban Chicago all the way to the bush in Liberia.
When I say bush, I say jungle. A place where black mama and green mama snakes were, they were everywhere. That's why we were very poor, we got very ragged, and we had very little to eat. For the first 6 months, we almost starved. Had the stomach sticking out, and we had malaria, hepatitis, we had every kind of thing. We had dysentery, but believe me, being away from the United States in the jungles was much better to us, because there we were away from the hatred, from the racism, from the discrimination.
But soon, it was time to fulfill the vision. In May 1968, Ben-Ammi and another pioneer known as Prince Chizkiyahu landed in Tel Aviv.
Nasi Chizkiyahu, that's Prince Chizkiyahu. He's the one that came with Ben-Ammi in 1968, and Ben-Ammi left him here. He didn't know it when he left Liberia, but Ben-Ammi left him here with the assignment to learn the language, to learn the land, make friends, and be prepared to receive the rest of those who came from Liberia.
Chizkiyahu went to work on a kibbutz on Israel's coastal plain.
Prince Chizkiyahu told the officials there at the kibbutz they had some more brothers like him that wanted to come. He said, if you got more like him, we'd take 10, 20 like you.
But the kibbutz leaders were shocked when instead of a group of hardworking men, a group of 5 families with children showed up on their doorstep, ready to become new Israeli citizens.
So initially when we arrived in Israel in 1968, we came under the law of return. The law of return then said that anyone who has that affinity and who has that connection and desires to reconnect with our ancestral home, then they're welcome to come. Aliyah chofshit lamidina ivrit, freedom of aliyah to the Hebrew state. And so by us being Hebrews, then we said, okay, great, we're coming home, not a problem at all. And we believed that we were going to be accepted.
But the African Hebrews didn't look like Jewish communities Israel's immigration authorities had encountered before. Unsure of what to make of them, the state split the difference. They gave the families 3-month tourist visas, but also found them housing in Israel's south and granted them permission to work. But when a second, larger group of African Hebrews arrived in 1969, and more followed after that, the authorities' antenna went up. And this coincided with a change to Israel's citizenship laws.
In 1970, when the law was amended, and they then added the definition of who is a Jew, and who was a Jew meant somebody who either converted to Judaism and didn't hold on to another religion, or who was born to a Jewish mother. We couldn't prove those things because we had come out of 400 years plus of enslavement in America. And as a result of that, the people who had received legal status in 1968-69, that legal status then was revoked. And so they started deporting people from the community with the The reasoning being that we were illegal aliens in Israel. And there was nothing else left for us to do but to fight that.
In the years following the first deportations, the African Hebrews fought in court, staged protests, and even renounced their American citizenship, but to no avail. And for decades, the African Hebrews lived on the periphery of Israeli society. The rabbinic authorities disputed their qualifications for citizenship, and their alternative lifestyle was bewildering to some Israelis. They were vegans, a diet considered fringe at the time. They practiced polygamy, which was functionally banned under Jewish law. And their utter devotion to Ben Ammi and calling themselves a kingdom seemed cultish to some in the outside world. Israel offered the African Hebrews the opportunity to officially convert to Judaism and receive citizenship.
All of our life, people have been telling black people in America who they are. And we told them we were already Israelites. We had no need to convert.
Ben Ammi didn't want his Hebrew Israelite identity changed or subsumed into something else. But without citizenship, there was no path for them to stay in Israel legally. And without legal status, Israel's state systems were off limits. Their children couldn't attend public schools. The community couldn't access the national health system. The difficult conditions overwhelmed some of Ben Ammi's followers, who returned to the United States. But the majority stayed, and even more arrived, setting the stage for a hostile showdown between Ben Ammi and the Israeli state.
They've misquoted us, of course, saying that we said we were going to take the country and run the Jewish people out. But what we did say is that no unrighteous government will last in Israel. And the present government in Israel is an unrighteous government, and it will not last.
To the Israeli government, Ben Ammi's provocative statements confirmed their suspicion that the African Hebrews thought the Jewish inhabitants of the land were illegitimate, and that they weren't interested in accepting Jewish sovereignty in Israel. And despite the government's objections, the African Hebrews kept entering the country under the guise that they were visiting tourists and then overstaying their visas, deliberately flouting Israel's immigration laws. But from the community's perspective, the state's rejection seemed a lot like racism.
As we have remained and continue to go in these circles, we see Jim Crow has peeped his head up here in Israel, and we're being abused with what we call intellectual racism.
They felt their identity was being interrogated, while Jews from other far-flung places in the world were accepted as citizens. And yet, despite feeling rejected both religiously and racially, the African Hebrews were not deterred in their desire to become contributing members of Israeli society.
אין לכם לפעמים מחשבות שכדאי אולי לעזוב את הכל ולחזור חזרה לארצות הברית?
אף פעם, בכלל.
אני מעדיפה לגור פה עם הסיפור וכל זה במקום לחזור לשם.
We actually had sons who actually went to try to enlist, but it wasn't allowed. We didn't have the status to do that.
We were tourists for 20 years. What other force other than Yah Israel could have kept us here? Black people didn't have that kind of power that we could just live in a country where we were unwanted.
In 1986, things came to a head when the government arrested 46 African Hebrews and planned to deport them.
So we decided to protest. And we decided in this protest we were going to walk to Jerusalem. But early in the morning, the Israeli police surrounded this community.
We've lived in this land in peace. We have lifted not one finger against any inhabitant of this land. Neither have we conspired against this state. We returned to this land simply to worship the God of Israel. We went in peace and they made war. Our mothers are in prison. Our children are in prison. But let all the inhabitants of the world know we're not afraid.
For the sake of peace, Ben Ammi canceled the march. The police dispersed, and most of those slated for deportation were indeed sent back to the US. But for the community, the day of the show of strength, as it came to be known, became a symbol of their steadfast commitment to the land and to peace.
The Village of Peace, that is who we are. It's peace.
Within a few years, things finally started to change. In 1990, the ultra-Orthodox Minister of Interior, who had called for deporting African Hebrews, suddenly changed his mind.
It was Aryeh Deri who said, hey, I've grown up literally with you in this land, and we want to recognize, we want to make this right.
Wow.
So coming from the ultra-Orthodox, you would think that that wouldn't be something they'd do.
Yeah.
But it was Aryeh Deri who started that process.
But getting status wasn't like flipping a switch. It was more like a steady drip, starting tentatively with work visas. It was around this time that Yalital and Chavivia's mother, Tovit, arrived in Israel.
Even though I'm an English teacher, to survive here, I've had to clean house, But I'm not doing it anymore, not for money. I'll do it to help my loved ones. I was born in South Carolina. I went to the Peace Corps to Wanda in Cameroon, and I taught English as a second language. When I came back, a friend of mine was a Hebrew. He sold me some tickets. His Excellency Ben-Ami was coming to Atlanta to speak. And I bought tickets from him, being, supportive of a friend. And I actually enjoyed it. I started coming to classes, and I ended up coming to Israel. Loved it. I was just super zealous.
It was at this point, when Tovit was just beginning her life in Israel, the tragedy struck her community.
Well, my brother Aharon, he was an entertainer. He was also the first sabra male sabra born in Israel when we came in 1970. He was performing at a bat mitzvah, and terrorists broke in. He jumped in front of the girl to save the girl, and he took the bullet and it killed him. The government took a different perspective of us when that happened.
The community's grief connected them to every family in Israel that knew the heartbreak of terror. And Aaron's murder changed the way Israel's establishment perceived the African Hebrews as well. A year later, the government granted some community members permanent residency. This new status enabled the African Hebrews to make a major leap in their quest for integration. They readily agreed to have their young men and women enlist in the army.
We're not neutral when it comes to the state of Israel. We would do whatever is necessary to defend Israel.
Yaniv Ben Israel was one of the community's first members to compete and qualify for an elite special forces unit.
ברמה של האידיאולוגיה, איך זה יסתדר לך? את הצורך להגן על המולדת, וביחד עם זאת אתה חלק מקהילה ששואפת לשלום.
כל הבסיס שלנו זה שלום. ופתאום שמים לך נשק ביד, ופתאום אתה צריך להתנהג אחרת, לעשות דברים אחרת. מאוד מאתגר מנטלית. גם לעבור את הדברים, גם להתגבר עליהם, וגם לחזור לחיים של הכפר. יש סתירה, ברור שיש סתירה. אבל אנחנו מאוד מאמינים שדרך הצבא זה הדרך שלנו גם להגיע ולהתחבר לכל הנוער שיש בישראל, וככה גם דרך להפיץ את הרוב של הקהילה. יש לנו זכות גם להגן על המדינה שלנו, בסופו של דבר.
The community celebrated in 2010 when a handful of their members achieved long-awaited full citizenship. And 3 years later came a groundbreaking announcement that completing 18 months of military service would make younger community members and their immediate family eligible for citizenship. For a while, it seemed like the African Hebrews had figured out their place in Israel. But then, in 2021, the pendulum swung again, and the government announced a new wave of deportations. Yalital and Chavivia's family was on the list.
I received a letter of deportation with my name on it, as well as all of my children's names. We were given 60 days. You know, I had children here. I went through my 30s here, went through my 40s here, and then all of a sudden, I'm 51, and somebody's telling me I'm about to be deported. You know, a part of me really just did not accept that.
For 4 years, the family shuttled from court to court in a battle for status. Finally, in 2025, they were granted temporary residency.
After 4 years, we'll be getting permanent residency. And I feel the change since I've gotten it. Of course, I've always felt like this is home, this is Israel, and also this country is so accepting, so I always felt a part. But now that I have it, I feel there's a base under me, I belong here.
The apartment is still not together, so my sister was like, are they gonna film already? And I was like, I know. I mean, now we have a couch, a table, a refrigerator. But we just don't have our rug. And the rug is gonna really tie it in.
Even though you have hardships here, come on now, it's Israel. We have difficulties here, we have this conflict going on, you can feel it. But I feel that the people are unified, even with their different backgrounds. There is a sense of we are together, humans together, working together, living together. So that's why I love this country. And I know some people are like, what? You love this country? But I really do, I really do.
Yeah, so do we want something like this?
Oh, yeah.
לא, אל תגידי.
Mommy, come for a second.
רגע, אנחנו חוזרים. What, you found another rug store? He gonna hate us. Which is over here?
אין כמו זה בעולם. לא באמת יותר טוב מזה אין. יש לי גם אצלי.
אני אחזור. אם אני צריכה עוד, how do you say carpet?
את יודעת מה?
שטיח? אני אבוא לפה ראשון.
רגע.
סליחה.
Come on,
אני יודעת שלא...
Oh my God, I almost ate our head off. This dude.
He about to fight us. He said, y'all gonna buy this carpet.
I'm happy that I was raised here and nowhere else. Like, I understand why my parents wanted to leave America. America is not the home of Black people. This is what I believe. My beliefs only. I feel you go there and it's like you always looking over your shoulder for this and that and what's gonna happen and how to live a healthy life. America wasn't sustainable.
It's been a wild ride. I feel like I can actually set some roots. So now I can say that I'm okay being in Israel. Like, you know, I always loved Israel, but like now I can really see myself being here.
Even though Israel wasn't always sure about them, the African Hebrews were sure about Israel. And leaving America behind, they were coming home. Their commitment to Ben Ammi's vision was deep, living on after his passing in 2014.
We are a God-based community. We prefer to use the name Yah. How do you worship Yah? You worship him in spirit and in truth. It's righteousness and morality. It's a system of living that makes sense in the context of the world we face.
We went into captivity disobeying the instructions, so in order to be free, there's no freedom without following those instructions by Yah.
Sar Yoshua ben Israel is the Minister of Divine Health of the African Hebrews.
Welcome to our Chanutam, our nation store. In America, the United States, our people particularly were plagued with many diseases, heart disease, kidney disease, liver failure, all because of the Western-based lifestyle that we were in. Not just the diet, but just the whole lifestyle of racism, stress, trying to make it in the society, et cetera, et cetera. So the eating of the meat and all of these things, the processed food is what was killing us. Then maybe if we changed our diet, then maybe these things will be reversed.
The African Hebrews highlight a verse in Genesis as a divine instruction to cut out all animal products and adopt a strictly organic vegan diet. And this new food regimen was just one part of their holistic approach to health. Several times a year, the African Hebrews cut out sugar altogether or eat only foods that are prepared raw. They're expected to exercise 3 times a week. They also interpreted resting on the Sabbath to include fasting every Saturday to purge their bodies of toxins.
We are pursuing an idea where you can be in a state of existence where you're free from disease, free from pain, free from sickness, etc. Okay? Now this is a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but this is our objective, perfect health.
When they first arrived in Israel, veganism was completely countercultural. So the African Hebrews got creative. They grew their own crops and reworked their recipes around Middle Eastern produce, and even created a line of vegan foods now sold in Israeli supermarkets. Today, Israel is a vegan mecca, and the African Hebrews definitely get some of the credit. They've carried their plant-based message beyond the Village of Peace through products and restaurants like Genesis Vegan Delights.
The core ingredients here are the tofu, the noodles, the green beans, the vegetables, and seasonings. Seasonings are very important.
And the seasoning is plants.
Plant-based, exactly.
The restaurant is the brainchild of Yehonadav and Amitza, who left southern Israel for the middle of the country. They serve vegan soul food and curries with a dash of Israeli flavor.
Mac and cheese, lasagna, quiche, curry tofu, shawarma tofu, dal, quinoa, tofu, rice, brown rice, curry rice, mixed baked vegetables, beef patties.
We have people like, can you put me a dash of hummus on the side? I just want to have it. It don't go with the meal, but okay, I'll do it for you.
So tell me about the role that ice cream, vegan ice cream, has played in the history of the community. I understand that goes back to Liberia, essentially.
Wow, yeah. I remember as a little girl standing in line just waiting to get this little bit of ice cream. We were so excited. We had one machine for the whole community, and we have developed ice cream to a level of eliteness. This ice cream is so good. This is the cheesecake. This is cashew.
The commitment to an organic, plant-based lifestyle goes beyond food. The community makes its own clothing, strictly out of naturally occurring fibers. there's a heavy emphasis on West African styles, a deliberate move away from Western fashion influences.
It's modest clothing, flowing and loose-fitting, but beautiful. Cultural wear that speaks to divinity and being your feminine self or your masculine self without the European overtones to them. Right now, we're working on school uniforms for our school.
During the early decades in Israel, homeschooling was the only option for African Hebrews. But in the early 90s, they were able to build a public school across the street from the Village of Peace, infusing it with their distinct values.
פשוט העברנו את המסורת שלנו אל בית הספר. הבית הספר פותח כל בוקר מסדר שבחים, לשבח את הבורא. פותחים בתפילה, עשה דיברות והשמע, רק אחרי זה יש לנו שיר עמי, או ישראל, הארץ של אבותינו, אהובת יחווה. חיים, אהבה וחירות תמיד בקרבה. ארץ שהשבטים מתיישבים תחת מגן יהודה.
את יכולה לדבר קצת על הדמויות פה על הקיר?
כן, פה אנחנו מהיסטוריה, מסוג'ורנר טרוף, מרקוס גרבי, פרדריק דאגלס, מלקום אקס, כולם דיברו על זהות. אבל לא נתן לבורא להם לפרט את זה כמו שצריך, כי בן-עמי הביא את הגאולה, זהות למה? בן-עמי הביא את זה לאורח חיים.
Ben-Ammi's vision is infused into every element of life in the Village of Peace, including their self-expression. Their slice of Dimona is like a living art gallery, with dance and music woven into the African Hebrews' worship and celebration. Their songs are a fusion of classic soul music and their connection to God and the Holy Land. Art was also a bridge to the rest of Israeli society. For many years, much of Israel's economy was closed to the community, but performing for the public was something they could do even while they struggled to gain legal status.
Our bands were very, very instrumental in bringing soul music to Israel. We would do weddings, and we would do bar mitzvahs, and we would do free shows for the military.
Their fame even reached international proportions. Israel has sent African Hebrew singers to represent the country twice at the iconic Eurovision Song Competition. Their first Eurovision song became an anthem at Israeli birthday parties to this day. But the road to full acceptance was and can still be bumpy, especially when racism rears its ugly head.
So the lack of neighborly love, what do you attribute that to?
Fear of the unknown, because they hadn't really invested time and energy in actually learning and understanding who we are. And unfortunately, this is usually coming from those people who experienced prejudice and racism, mainly in Europe.
I will say, like, I have experienced, like, racism or even microaggressions. Like, you know, one time we were walking in Tel Aviv and somebody rolled past us and blurted out the N-word. And I would say it comes from a space of, like, ignorance or just people not being informed. I think maybe it does have a different vibe because of the historical context for America.
Yeah, they got racism in Israel, but so what? They got it everywhere. Nothing like where I come from. Nothing like the United States.
But bigotry hasn't deterred them from serving the country or pursuing life as Israelis.
All we want to do is just contribute. Because when we're protecting and defending the land, we're also defending the Village of Peace. And we're defending also all the other residents within Israel.
It's more than words. In 2025, Elisha Young fell in Gaza while defending his country. Today, the ground under the African Hebrews' feet seems a bit more stable. They see their future here, in the Holy Land. And like any tight-knit community, they wrestle with what it means to straddle two worlds.
We're Israelis, but we're also Hebrews. Because we're integrated into the army, we're learning in the school system here in Israel, and then we also have to go into the job market. So we're Israelis, lekol davar, yeah? But yet we have another side, and the side is the Hebrew.
I have a
complicated relationship with my community. You know, I've come back and left and been on the outskirts, and I'm not sure if I want to be there. So I feel that my own values are a bit different than what I learned in my community. And I know they aren't so accepted. I feel like they wanted me to cut off parts of myself to, you know, belong. And I was just like, people are younger, so they have different mindset, different generation.
Going out into the world, you get exposed to different things. So you have to make a decision for yourself whether you want to continue in the traditional way or if you want to be more secular.
That's one of the concerns, is maintaining our cultural identity. If y'all don't stick with this culture will be extinct. People look for the Hebrews in Dimona, and there will not be an address for it.
Lately, last 2 years, I'm coming back around. I'm like, I have all of these traditions that we bring. I pray over my food. I'm very spiritual. So there's this delicate balance I'm always trying to, you know, I'm moving between.
This push and pull between identities, immigrants to Israel have felt it for generations. Whether their recent ancestors lived in Europe, Iraq, Yemen, or the south side of Chicago. And maybe that's why so many Jewish Israelis of all backgrounds have stood with the African Hebrews in their fight to stay. Because we see something of ourselves in them. A people burning with passion, tied to this land with every fiber of their soul. Willing to endure, to struggle, to fight, just to be here on this holy soil. And always searching for that balance between where you come from and where you're going.
Thank you, Mother Earth, for bringing this food to my table. Thank you, Yahweh, for bringing this food to my table. I ask you to imbue this food with peace, love, ease, understanding, and gentleness. I thank you to everybody who had a hand in bringing this food to my table. Thank you. Ta-da!
Y'all love doing these long prayers.
That's long?
Thank you. Let's eat.
How that long? That was short.